How do I be quick about this book because I loved it so much? If you guys would just freaking talk, everything would be fine. I just didn't like it. When I tell you it leaves you on a cliffhanger. Hello everyone. So it is a rainy day here in Seoul, and it is April 12th, coming in a little bit late with this video, but I wanted to go through books I read in March. And I'm really bad about keeping track of what books I have read. I might miss a few. I think I got them all and I have plenty to talk about. So if I do, I will throw them into my April one, which is gonna be insane because I just finished Rule of Wolves and I want to talk about it. So look forward to that. But today we're just talking about March. Why don't we just dive in? These are not in order. Usually I try to speak of them in the order in which I read them, but I do not remember the order. So it's a bit jumbled, but let's go into it, okay? First and foremost, these were a really quick read. So many people had recommended them and I wasn't too interested, but I did end up reading 3 of the Shatter series. In my mind, it's a trilogy. I think there's like 5 books. I'm not really sure, but I thought that it ended in a place where I was satisfied after the 3rd one. So I only read 3. I believe it's Shatter Me, Ignite Me, and Unravel Me. And the story is a very hard one to talk about without spoiling. So without spoilers, as best I can, we follow one girl who we meet her when she is living in an asylum, and she's been there for a very long time, and she has sort of kind of lost her mind a little bit. She's been in solitary confinement for a very long time, and so there's actually an author's note in the beginning that explains why, because we see everything through her point of view. The writing is very kind of erratic and repetitive, and it focuses on numbers, and she's clearly kind of out of her mind. And so the author kind of lets you know ahead of time, like, it's kind of, as she kind of comes back to herself, the writing will be easier to read. So I did think that that was quite interesting, but the reason she's in this asylum / jail is because they're living in this society that has kind of been taken over by, it's called like the Reestablishment. There was basically this huge revolution and now the entire world is kind of under new management. She not only has to deal with the fact that her world is being controlled by a not very good government, but also she has this strange power where if she touches another living human, they die an excruciating death. They don't die immediately, so like if she touches you, you'll just be in extreme pain, you won't die, but if she like holds on to you for a while, you'll die. Does that make sense? Yeah, her parents were not into that, and so they just kind of like gave her away, and people did a bunch of experiments on her, and then they were like, you know, ooh, let's put her in that little asylum. I'm not going to spoil it too much, but she does eventually get out of the asylum, and she is now become this kind of pawn in the Reestablishment maintaining order, because people see her power as either a gift or a weapon, something that can be used. So she is basically thrown into a not super great situation. And I didn't love it, honestly. I feel like if I had read this when I was maybe like a freshman in high school, I think like whenever the Hunger Games came out, when we were doing all this dystopian stuff, I feel like at that point, if I had read it, I would have enjoyed it. But for me now reading it, it felt a little cliche. It felt a little, especially the writing style, it felt very much like the mid 2000s, you know, quite edgy, quite dark. I didn't love it, I didn't hate it, but it just felt like something I had kind of read before. I wouldn't put it on the top of your reading list unless you're like super into dystopian stuff. I think that the idea was interesting, and I think that some of the themes that the author was trying to put across to us, to a young adult reader, I thought was very interesting, especially when it comes to like relationships. So I appreciate what was attempted, but it just wasn't my style. I think I'm a little too old for it now. So that was Shatter Me. Okay, I haven't had a chance to talk about it yet. I read Chain of Iron. I don't know if I did talk about Chain of Gold. I'm into the Shadowhunter world. You guys know that. I didn't think I was. I didn't think I would be. Again, I didn't know that she had continued writing after City of Bones. I didn't know that she continued the Mortal Instruments stuff. So I have discovered the Shadowhunter world very recently, rediscovered it, and I'm happy to be here. So I enjoyed Chain of Gold. The thing I really like about Cassie's writing isn't anything other than her characters just have great freaking banter. I love it. Like, I just love her dialogue, and these books in particular are dialogue banter heavy, almost to a point where it was too much, I think. This book, in case you don't know, this is the second of the trilogy. I hope it's going to be a trilogy. If there are 4 books, I'm going to die. It follows a group of Shadowhunters who are living in London, Victorian London, and it's kind of the generation after Infernal Devices. So we have Tessa? Yeah, we have like all of them. And we see like the next generation after that, which is kind of kooky, kind of fun. Whereas in the Infernal Devices series, there's a ton of demon stuff going on. In the Last Hours trilogy, there's no demon stuff going on. And so these kids have kind of grown up with very little real life experience. They've gotten kind of, not lazy, but like they've trained, but they haven't actually seen action, and so they're living like a pretty normal carefree life if you're like looking at it on Shadowhunter terms, until suddenly all this demon stuff starts to happen at once, and it's no good, and they're trying to get to the bottom of this whole demon thing. But of course, with Cassie Clare wrapped around it, there's a whole lot of like love issues, you know. She's got it down. It's like a well-oiled machine at this point, like the yearning and the like, if you guys would just talk and be together, we wouldn't have to have this second book. We could just have a duology. But it's Cassie Clare, it's what we're here for. I did think the way that Chain of Iron ended, and this again doesn't have spoilers, the way that Chain of Iron ended, I knew she had to do something in order to continue the kind of crisis. It can't be wrapped up that easily, but I thought that the thing that she decided to do at the end to cause another kind of issue, I just didn't like it. I didn't think that's necessary, and I don't like where this is going. It was, as someone who likes the Shadowhunter world, I liked it, but I'm also like, it's almost getting too much. This whole idea of, if you guys would just freaking talk, everything would be fine. It's a frustrating read. That one was a frustrating read. But again, if you're a fan of Cassie Clare, there it is, Chain of Iron. I'm excited to talk about this one. I read Namesake, which is the second book, 2 of 2, of the Fable series. And so just as a recap, Fable, I thought this was going to be a fantasy novel based on the title, but it's actually much more based around like piracy and like island nations and trading routes and like nautical stuff. There's like a drop of fantasy, and I think it's not a spoiler to tell you what that drop is now. The entire series follows a girl named Fable, and she was abandoned on this island and kind of left for dead by her father, who is kind of piratey kind of figure. He's not a pirate, but you know, he's a tradesman. There was a terrible shipwreck, her mother died, and her father just like without explaining anything, just like dropped her off on this island and like went away. And so Fable has been kind of fending for herself and diving for precious gems and selling those, and that is how she makes money, and she's trying to buy her way off of this island so that she can find her father and figure out what the hell. And so the drippity drip drop of fantasy is just that she can kind of hear gemstones. She's a very, very good dredger. She can dive and she can like feel where the precious stones would be. And she's also just really freaking good at holding her breath, which was stressful to read. Lots of underwater scenes, lots of me trying to breathe for her while I'm reading, and it was hard. And I think I mentioned this when I talked about Fable the first time, is that as much as I enjoyed reading Fable, it felt like it was sort of a prequel to the action that was going to happen. So in Fable, we kind of meet all the characters and we piece together the truth about Fable's life. There is action, definitely, but it's more of like just solving the mystery of who the hell is Fable. And then now with Namesake, now that we have all of that sorted out, we go on like this proper kind of adventure. And so Namesake really felt like the story had started and like, okay, now we're ready to go. And I actually really liked it. I can't really tell you much about it because it does spoil the first one, but it's the same group of characters. We meet a lot of new people, and this one is much more, I don't want to compare it necessarily to Six of Crows, but it has that kind of feeling of there's a lot of plot twists. Like they'll make a decision to do something and they'll like have a backup plan and all this stuff will fall into place, and then they'll like swoop in and something else will happen, and like I don't know, it was very riveting, especially kind of the last half. Things moved really quickly and I was taken by surprise. I was like, how are they gonna get out of this? How is this gonna work? And then it was a good time. It was a really good time. So I would definitely recommend it, and it is finished now, so it's just a duology. It is Fable and Namesake. So the next three I've actually talked about in separate videos, so I'm gonna be kind of quick about them. How do I be quick about this book? Because I loved it so much. Okay, Legendborn. I loved this book so much that I had to make an entire video. Like I had to come up with a theme just so that I could talk about Legendborn before I filmed this. It was such a surprise. I don't know what I was expecting. I went into it knowing nothing, and I literally, it pains me to wait for the next one. I'm in physical pain every single day thinking about the next one. So what is Legendborn about if you haven't already heard me spewing about it? Legendborn follows one girl who, in the very first chapter, we learn has lost her mother in a very tragic accident. As the book begins, we are seeing her deal with a lot of grief, a lot of regret, a lot of confusion, and she is starting a new school program. She is brilliant, so she gets let into college like 2 years early. So she's 16, but she's allowed to like live in the dorms and go to all of these college classes and stuff like that because she's a genius. You know, we love that. I was super focused on the King Arthur aspect of it in my like dark academia video, but for this video I do want to really highlight how nuanced this story was. There is a large focus on racism and just how ingrained racism is in society, especially because this is taking place in North Carolina. So it does talk a lot about past like plantations and slavery, even though it is tied so closely to the past and like King Arthur and demons and stuff like that. It is also tied so much to present day and talking about the struggles of being a young Black woman living in the South or just living in America in general. And I thought the way that she did it was so great for me as a reader, honestly, because the more that I hear about the nuances, the better off I am as a human being, like the better I can understand and try and correct my actions. But she also would go just to do simple things like talking about how she cared for her natural hair, which I don't think we hear about. I don't know, just something about that, like it just felt like there were details in there that I had never read before, and it made her feel so real. And I don't know, I just thought that the amount of stuff that is packed into this novel, I learned so much, and it also was just like excellent world building. Like I really felt like I was there and like this was a person that I could know, and maybe she lived next door to me in the dorms, and hopefully she did because she could protect me from demons, because I don't actually think that I talked about the plot at all. I totally forgot to continue what the plot is about. Girl goes to college. Everything is kind of shitty, obviously, because she just lost her mom and she's feeling very just like confused about what she's doing with her life. And then she starts to see demons running around. Nobody else does, except for this like very small group of people who she's kind of like, if you guys see them and I see them, I think we need to team up. That is where we start to learn more about the King Arthur and everything. So overall, this was a ramble and I can't really explain how much I loved this book, but I loved this book. And I cannot wait. When I tell you, I cannot wait for the sequel. I can't wait for the sequel. If you liked Shadowhunters, this is not, I mean, other than the fact that they're like fighting demons, I think that you would like it, but I feel like this is so greatly tied to reality that it makes it feel like a completely different book. I think Yeah, I can't say anything else. Legendborn, please read it. Thank you. Okay, next up, I talked about this book recently in my standalone YA fantasy book video, wherever it is. And it is The Library of Fates. And I already said this, but this was a book that I just wish was longer because I loved it, but every single piece of it I wanted more. It kind of felt like this was a good draft and then I wanted her to like beef it up. I loved the characters, but I felt like I also don't know the characters. I loved the world, but I also feel like I don't fully understand the world. I loved the action scenes, but I also felt like they happened in the blink of an eye. So it was like a very condensed story that like I'm constantly thinking about it and trying to like buff out the scenes myself. So what is it about? It is about a princess who has been kind of betrothed, promised to this tyrant who is taking over all of the land surrounding her kingdom. And so in order to protect her kingdom, she has been promised to this guy. Everything kind of falls to pieces. They're supposed to meet and then there's a huge argument and everything just implodes on itself. No spoiler, but the wedding does not happen. God, it's so easy to spoil this book. How do I go about it? This book talks a lot about mythologies. We learn a lot about gods and goddesses, and it kind of talks about the idea of different realities and different timelines. Kind of like the butterfly effect, like if you make one choice, your life can go this way, and if you make another choice, it can go this way. It talks a lot about that and how certain things might happen to you, but they're meant for another life. It talks a library of fates. It talks a lot about fate. Again, I don't want to spoil it, but the book, how the book starts is so incredibly different from how the book ends. And it was fascinating and I just wanted a lot more. So if you do want to read a book that is good but also almost unsatisfying because you wanted so much more, definitely read Library of Fates. I know I'm not really selling it, but it was excellent, but I just needed more of it. Another standalone YA fantasy that I read recently is Descendant of the Crane, and this is another one that I am not satisfied with it being a standalone or being the length that it was, because when I tell you it leaves you on a cliffhanger, how dare she? First of all, like just how, who gave her the right to end a book like that and then just like not write a sequel? Is that allowed? Like how? So Descendant of the Crane is about a girl. Again, we have a princess. She's about to become queen because her father has died, and across the board, everybody's like natural causes, kind of weird, but natural causes. And the daughter, our main character, is not convinced. So as she ascends the throne, her first act of being queen is to open a official royal investigation into her father's death. What she does in order to make this happen is she has to go talk to some of the people who have magical powers in her kingdom, which is not something she should be doing because the current royal family are descendants of this group called the 11s, which were 11 people who overthrew the previous kingdom. The 11s came in, swooped them out, and they ruled better. The only problem is that there were people who live in this society who do have magical powers, and the 11s were kind of like, you know, we don't really love that, so we're just gonna kill you all. They should not exist in their kingdom, and the queen or the princess should certainly not be talking to them and using their help. I can't go into much more without spoiling it, but like I said in my previous video, this is really like a political thriller. There's a lot of backstabbing and a lot of plot twists, etc. And again, that ending, just how dare she? Honestly, like I'm so mad about the ending because I need, well, just read it. And last but not least, I'm going to talk about my feelings towards Klara and the Sun by Kazuo Ishiguro. So I did a reading vlog about it, but I don't think I finished the book. How do I talk about this book? So you guys might know that Never Let Me Go is one of my favorite books of all time. So I had high hopes for this novel. So we follow Klara, who we very quickly learn is some kind of AI. It seems like in this world, everybody kind of gets a robot. Like the kids will get like a robot nanny kind of thing. That just seems common. And the point of view is Klara. So we really don't get to know about anything about the world other than what she can see. And so far she has only lived in her shop. So she sees things out of her shop window and that's all. The reason that the sun is involved is because all of these AI are solar powered, and so they really rely on the sun as kind of this like great power, this feeding thing, this life giver. Her entire life kind of revolves around either people coming into her store or like looking at where the sun goes in the shop. So it was kind of interesting to see that an AI almost developed a religion. Like she really looks at the sun as God. And so that was kind of interesting. Like what happens when robots become religious? I've like never really thought about that before. But she does end up leaving the shop and she goes to live with this family, and we start to learn more about what the plans for Klara are. Klara is very interested in understanding human emotions because she's supposed to be able to kind of anticipate what they want and what they need. She's very perceptive and she's, you know, almost too smart for what her role is supposed to be. So I had really high hopes, and once you kind of find out what the plans for her life are, like what her family wants of her, so interested. And then I was honestly quite let down by the ending. I don't actually really remember how it ended. I don't think it really did. I think it had so much potential for like the first 3 quarters, and then it just kind of ended on this very strange, I think because it was Klara's point of view, we couldn't get a full, I don't know, we couldn't get the ending that I really wanted. But I mean, it was interesting. It brought up a lot of, one point that I thought was so interesting that it brought up was talking about uniqueness. And, you know, we can teach an AI to play chess. We can teach an AI to play Go. But can we teach an AI to perfectly understand human emotions? Or is there something in us that makes us completely unique? I thought that was really interesting. Like the obsession with us, like each human being is a unique, wonderful thing and we can't be replaced. Like I thought that that was a pretty interesting theme. So overall, I would recommend it, but I would just say that the ending was lackluster and it wasn't, nothing's gonna touch Never Let Me Go. But anyway, those were the books that I read in March. I think that I was just so completely blown away by Legendborn, and then I was like taken on a ride by Chain of Iron because I had to read Chain of Gold again to remember what it was even about. And I did really love Namesake. So yeah, overall, I had like a very 50-50 mix in March. But April, oh my god, there are so many feels already. So I did read Rule of Wolves, and I'm just about to finish These Violent Delights. I have so many books that are about to be read, and I'm so pumped. So yeah, I don't even know what to say. I'm so excited to talk about my April books. March seemed so long ago already, but I hope that you found anything interesting in there that I talked about. And please leave more recommendations down below. You guys have been like hitting the nail on the head as far as recommendations go. I hope you guys are reading something good. And I will see you guys next time. Okay? Bye.